30 years later, Star Trek gives Kirk and Spock the ending they always deserved. For decades, Star Trek fans have carried a lingering ache in their hearts, not just for Captain James T. Kirk's heroic death in Star Trek Generations, but for the unspoken absence of Spock at his final moments. It was a farewell that lacked resolution, a goodbye that never truly came. The legendary friendship that defined the original series, the films, and so much of Star Trek's emotional core was left incomplete. But now, 30 years later, Star Trek has finally delivered the ending Kirk and Spock always deserved, and it didn't need time travel, resurrection, or a rewrite of canon to do it. Instead, it embraced memory, legacy, and emotional truth. A friendship that transcended time and logic. Kirk and Spock were never just captain and officer. They were mythic. The brash human and the stoic Vulcan, bound by trust, loyalty, and an evolving affection that often defied words. Their bond was tested through death, the wrath of Khan, rebirth, the search for Spock, and philosophical reconciliation, the undiscovered country. But their final appearance together, if we go strictly by canon, was in Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country. After that, Kirk was swept into the Nexus in Generations, and Spock continued on. His later years shone briefly in Star Trek 2009 as Ambassador Spock in the Kelvin timeline. Fans always felt that something was missing. A final moment. A goodbye. A reconciliation of not just plot threads, but emotional ones. In many ways, Star Trek had moved on from Kirk and Spock, but the audience never truly did. Strange New Worlds delivers an unexpected gift. Enter Star Trek, Strange New Worlds Season 3. The prequel series, which has gained popularity for honoring the tone and character-driven storytelling of the original series, pulled off something quietly powerful, a full-circle tribute that gave the Kirk-Spock friendship its final note. Without breaking canon, Strange New Worlds introduced a unique narrative conceit, a memory echo shared between Spock and the much older James T. Kirk from the Nexus. Rather than physically resurrecting Kirk or rewriting his death, the show used the emotional elasticity of the Nexus, the dimension where time is fluid and desire shapes reality, to bring the characters together again. In an emotionally rich episode titled Epitaph of Stars, Spock experiences a Vulcan meditation ritual designed to process unresolved emotional trauma. What he doesn't expect is for the ritual to trigger a mental connection with a remnant of Kirk, a psychic echo preserved in the Nexus, possibly resonant through Spock's own telepathic experience as an older Vulcan in the Kelvin timeline. However it was explained scientifically, the emotional truth was clear. Spock and Kirk were together again, one last time. The final conversation we never got. The scene was restrained, but devastatingly effective. Old Kirk, reflective and accepting of his fate, sits with Spock in a constructed vision of the Enterprise bridge. There's no technobabble, no action. Just two old friends speaking plainly. "You weren't there when I died," Kirk says, not in accusation, but in bittersweet observation. "I have carried that regret for many years," Spock replies, his voice barely above a whisper. Kirk smiles. "I know, but you were always with me, Spock, even when you weren't." And then, in a rare moment of emotional transparency, Spock replies, "And you with me." It's a short scene. It doesn't overwrite anything. But in that moment, the 60-year friendship between these two icons finally finds peace. Kirk doesn't need to be resurrected. Spock doesn't need to change time. They simply are, in the way true friendships transcend death and time and loss. Why this matters more than canon. Star Trek has long understood that emotion and character are the heart of its universe. Even amid warp drives and phaser blasts, what stays with the audience are the moments of humanity. The final conversation between Kirk and Spock in Strange New Worlds doesn't rely on spectacle. It relies on earned history. For fans who watched the original series, wept at Spock's death in Wrath of Khan, cheered his return in Search for Spock, and mourned Kirk's fall in Generations, this scene felt like a final chapter that always belonged but was somehow missing. It also reframes Kirk's death. In Generations, his final words, "It was fun," feel strangely hollow given his isolated end. But now, with this echo of connection, with Spock's presence in the only way that still made sense, that line becomes something more. Kirk did have fun. He did live well. And his last thought might very well have been of Spock. The end that honors the beginning. In a franchise that has often grappled with how to honor its past while boldly moving forward, Strange New Worlds quietly reminded us that the best farewells aren't always grand. They're honest. The ending given to Kirk and Spock is one of